It started. There it is. It took a minute that time. What's up, guys? It's another episode of Off the Post. I'm your host, DJ Redcap. We are here. It's a pretty sad day. You know, we're not going to be as comical as we usually are because of what happened in the last U.S. Women's National Team game. I know a lot of you are upset over it. You know, we're not even meddling this year, so we'll discuss all of that. I don't know if we'll do like a now what or how, most people dealt with it. I have my tissues here. If this gets a little bit out of hand, I will start pulling them out and crying if I need to. So just, bear with me, people. I need someone to hold me at this moment in time. So we're going to see what everyone's been up to. And for some reason, we have a special guest. So we'll see who this random lady is on our show. We'll talk to her real quick. Courtney, how have you been doing?
TJ. Sorry, what did you just say?
So how have you been doing? How have you been doing, Courtney?
Oh, sorry, you cut out for a second.
Okay.
I'm good. I actually just got back from forced workplace bonding in the woods in the mountains. So I actually just got into service to check the score of the game as they were going into penalties. So it was kind of a salty rest of the 3-hour van ride home. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm doing all right.
All right, sounds good. How have you been doing, Jen?
Good. For once, not working, which is lovely. I don't know what to do with myself. I've just kind of been watching the rest of the Olympics. Volleyball just ended. We just beat China. So that was cool. But, yeah, just a whole lot of trying to relax and finally shake off that stupid cold I've had for like 2 weeks.
Right on, right on. All right, guys, as you know, this is a special guest we've had on before. You might know her because she plays for FC Kansas City. Yael, I'll let you introduce yourself. I won't just crack any more jokes. Go on now. This floor is yours.
Hi, guys. No, I'm glad to be here. Unfortunately, I did think we would be having a slightly different conversation about the past game, but yeah, like you said, my name is Yael. You can refer to me as Yaya if that's easier. I do have one question, though. Jen, how are you going to say you're a Spirit fan and then not even have a Spirit player as your picture on here?
I know. It's my,
to be fair, her NWS L1 does have a Spirit.
Yeah, hang on. I'll pull up my other one for a moment here so that. Hang on.
I was just a little confused by that.
She called her out.
I love
there you go.
I appreciate your support of her. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, there's my Joe Gomez, but.
Okay, I didn't want to have to erase Tobin from that. I do love Tobin, but I just thought it was funny.
I do.
As you can see, we've got it started early, people, so it's going to be a good episode. If you want to say anything to us, as always, use the hashtag WoSoTalk. You want to say something to me? Like I said, no jokes today, right now. Use the hashtag DJ Redcap, and I'll respond to your questions personally. So let's get it started.
Just to interject real quick, I am actually checking the Twitter and the YouTube, so if you say something to us, we will catch it today, because I know sometimes we're a little bit off with that, but I have it on live and refreshing, so talk to us.
All right, cool. All right, so we're going to do first half, second half, and then just overall game, PKs, talk about all that. We'll start with you first, Courtney, and then we'll go to you, Yaya. Let's go for expectations first getting into the game. What were your thoughts before going into this one?
Well, honestly, I didn't think it was going to be an easy game. I think we talked, those of us who were on the show Wednesday talked about how, for some reason, Sweden particularly tends to give the U.S. a bit of a challenge. We talked about that when we were making our predictions, that it certainly wasn't going to be an easy game, despite the fact that Sweden didn't really do so well in group stages.
Right.
It kind of all erases once you get into knockouts. It's kind of like you can kind of forget that and say, oh, we played X, Y, and Z way, but it's gone because it's a whole nother round, so it doesn't necessarily matter as much. But I was expecting it to be a tough game. I certainly wasn't expecting it to go down like it did. But I think that so it was kind of like it kind of went both ways. Like I thought Sweden would be a tough opponent, and they were, but I thought we would be able to, come out on top at the end. But obviously it didn't happen. But overall, I thought it was going to be a tough match, and it was.
All right, yeah. What are your expectations going into this game?
Yeah, I think Sweden's an interesting opponent for a few reasons. One, obviously, Pia Sundhage used to coach the U.S. team, so that she has some special insight there. Very, very smart tactical coach. And that combined with her knowledge, really intricate knowledge of the U.S. players, I think is going to always present an interesting situation for the U.S. team. It's always going to be tough, even if Sweden maybe wasn't the best they've ever been in the opening stages. I knew it was going to be tough. And in addition to that, Sweden now has a number of players who play for the top teams around the world and have played in the U.S. and have played with American players. So I think sometimes what happens is the players who are now very familiar with some of the U.S. players don't have that old fear that they used to have, about playing the U.S. team. I mean, hands down, the U.S. team is the most talented in the world. I think in terms of depth, player for player talent, and is the best team in the world. But you introduce a situation where a team is very, very prepared to play them, and in a knockout stage, like we saw, anything can happen. So I think I knew going in it was going to be very interesting tactically.
Yep. And Jen, do you have anything to add to that about your expectations?
I think they pretty much said everything. We all anticipated it being a tough game. And like Yaya said, it's tough when you're going up against a team that just knows us so well. We are, again, the best team in the world, but at the same point, we can't always, I guess, predict how other teams are going to try to counter what we can provide, and Sweden did an excellent job of doing that, as we saw. So I think, my expectations were a win, which we didn't get, but, I think the expectation of how Sweden played definitely measured out for me.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to touch on the first half real quick. I'll start with you first, Yaya. What were your thoughts on some of the things that happened in the first half?
The first half, in my opinion, was fairly non-eventful. I think what we took away from the first half is you could see clearly what Sweden was trying to do. They were sitting in really good defensive organization, and that's something that in the past has caused the U.S. a little bit of trouble. The U.S. relies a lot on some very dynamic one-on-one players who operate well with space to run at people and play final passes in behind to really fast dynamic forwards running onto them, and I think that it automatically presented a situation where that wasn't really going to be on. That being said, I don't think the U.S. played badly. I think there were some things they could have cleaned up, and similarly, I think Sweden executed their plan but didn't look particularly good to me. But those are the games that going into halftime you got to be careful, because really what Sweden was playing for was a counterattack type situation. They were playing for their one or two chances and to execute on those. So I think you saw very, very clearly in the first half what the game was going to be about, however it ended up unfolding. And
then, Courtney, do you have anything to add for the first half?
Yeah, just I'm kind of agreeing with that. Like, you could definitely tell what Sweden's game plan was, and it wasn't. The U.S. didn't necessarily react to it as well as you would think that they would, but they also didn't do poorly in the sense that Sweden didn't really have a lot of opportunity there either. So it was kind of a weird first half for me in the sense that you could kind of see what was going on. You could kind of see the U.S. weren't necessarily maybe not adapting their game plan as much, but they weren't playing horribly. Like, it wasn't entirely horrible first half. I know, like Yaya said, there were some things that didn't weren't being done and stuff like that, but it was kind of weird for me, like I said, in the sense that like you kind of see what was going on and what the reaction to that was, but it's still, they were in it, they were still trying to get chances, and Sweden hadn't really, done anything threatening. So it was kind of just weird first half for me.
Yeah, I think for me, I was just waiting for, I was thinking, like, if we get into the second half without scoring anything, I said this is going to be a smash and grab game where they're going to nick it in the 80th minute and still up something from us off of one good counterattack. Because as long as you allow a team to stay in it, usually, like I said, all it takes is one good attack to build together. And I feel like the U.S., they need to, I don't know, it's been a thing where I would like them to jump on teams a bit more if they can, but sometimes a lot of teams sit back and just park the bus almost from the beginning of the game on, making it so hard to break down that we can't really get that early goal that we like. And when we do, a lot of times it will open a team up, but it's so hard for us. So against every especially a team like Sweden, that that they're going to come with great tactical understanding of what we're going to do. Because Pia, I knew it was going to be hard to even break this team down and really try to get something going. So let's go to you, Jen. Your thoughts on the second half?
The second half was a little bit more interesting because we kind of saw Sweden's idea come to fruition. They got their one excellent counterattack. They split our back pairing there with JJ and Brun and managed to get one in. And at that point, they were playing almost solely defense. That being said, every single one of the forwards we have on our team, I think, excels at kind of threading the needle in the sense that we can kind of do the same thing. We can get in there, and if they give us this much space, we can take advantage of that and get in and score a goal. And that's kind of what happened with a little bit of ricochet over there. Alex Morgan, got us tied up. And at that point, I don't know if it was kind of a situation of the U.S. being flustered, which isn't something we see very often. But I think we had over 20 shots compared to Sweden's 6, but only about 6 of ours were on goal. So I don't know if in that moment they kind of let the emotion outweigh maybe their tactical side and kind of just started trying to press forward and trying to create chances. And unfortunately, they didn't end up getting it. We went into extra time. We went into penalty kicks. But I think Sweden played brilliantly, and not brilliantly in the sense that they were tactically brilliant, but brilliantly in the sense that they executed a plan that worked against us, and that's very difficult for a lot of things to do.
Right.
I mean, I know Jill Ellis had said going into this that she expected Sweden to park the bus. So I was kind of hoping they maybe would have come up with a strategy to counter that, and Sweden just didn't give us a whole lot of chances to do so. So, it was heartbreaking for us U.S. fans, but at the same point, the fact that we went into extra time and then into penalty kicks, I think kept us a little bit hopeful, at least for a little while longer.
Yep. And then, Yael, what were some things you saw in the second half and extra time?
Yeah, I actually have a ton of thoughts about this, because for me, going into the second half, I think anyone as an American fan has to feel super hopeful, because think about the players we have that could come off the bench. And we saw it, someone like Crystal Dunn, Kristen Press. I mean, we have world-class players who would be star players on any team, waiting for their opportunity on the bench, fully rested and ready to step in, motivated to be the one to make the difference. So already I think we're set up to succeed there. But, soccer, the irony of soccer is that's such a typical soccer thing. You're attacking, and I don't think we struggled to create chances. Like you said, we had 20 shots. There were chances created, but that's why soccer's so crappy sometimes. You get all those chances, and then the team sitting in has one counter, which it has to be said, that was a beautiful goal by Sweden. I mean, all credit to them on that. Yes, we had a couple breakdowns. Obviously, we gave the ball away, but that was 80 yards from our goal. Obviously, the back line can't allow her to get in like that, things like that. But I mean, that was very, very well executed by Sweden. And then you have a situation where you're chasing the game, and I think that for all of us who have followed the U.S. national team, it's a situation where everybody just knows you're going to come back. And I think that that's one thing that made me a little nervous going into this tournament, is that I actually think that this team, and I said this on Twitter and some people disagreed, but I think that this team probably played the best soccer I've seen the U.S. team play. And that's no disrespect to any of the teams that came before, any of the talent that we've had. I just think in terms of moving the ball, the patience, using each other, finding a rhythm of play, it was significantly different than I've seen in the recent past. And I think that it's great, but it also it means that the team was maybe, like we said, lacking a little bit of that urgency. And maybe in the past, I've always thought the team was a little too urgent, like people went forward too quickly, but it would result in it came off as, results in games. So, that game could have been played 20 times and this result would have only happened once. Once it gets into penalties, we all know that anything can happen. But I think it's just one of those things where any number of things could have easily turned it to go the other way. But I think going into that second half, as American fans, in the beginning of it, we had to feel good about our chances. It just was very unfortunate.
Yep, I agree with you. So Courtney, did you have anything to say? Because I was going to let us do the overall view of the game and then just kind of a now what type of thing, or you go on the second half?
The only thing that I would say is that I was a little bit and I understand that when you're in extra time, especially you're probably potentially going to go to penalties. Some of the substitution choices, I guess I was a little bit confused about, and I don't know if we're going to talk about PKs especially, but not to be overly critical, because I know people have been picked it apart to death, but honestly, if I'm making a penalty lineup in a knockout game in the Olympics, I would probably have Carly Lloyd take the first one or last one. If that's risky though, if you don't make it to the last one, but yeah, there's just kind of some interesting, about who took the penalties, kind of the order of penalties, things like that were a little bit puzzling. But I'm sure, there was a reason, everyone has a reason for, you don't just make choices like that willy-nilly, but, like, I obviously don't know how, like, Jill Ellis and them decide penalties. Some people do, whoever puts your hand up, go. Some teams do, no, I'm deciding who's taking the penalty, and, I obviously not really sure kind of how that works, but still, certainly the order. I don't necessarily, have a problem with most of the people who took one. I would maybe change one or two, but again, hindsight's 50-50, 2020, not 50-50. Words are hard. It's been a long couple days. It's hot still. I was in the woods. It's been a long couple days. God. But yeah, that's the only thing I would add is that I think, there's something to kind of, I guess, just think about, like, that was the one thing that struck me. There's not really a lot you can do in penalties, but except for pick your penalty order and takers, and that was kind of a little bit, some of the choices were kind of quite puzzling to me. But again, you don't do that all willy nilly. So I'm sure there was a reason for how she picked and deciding the order. But that's really the only other thing that I would add is that I was just a little kind of like surprised, I guess would be the right word of kind of what went on in penalties.
Yeah, see, I wasn't even going to touch the penalties, so I'm glad that you did talk about it, because I just consider them a crapshoot. Although it's fine, it's just like I consider them such a crapshoot where the worst team can get by. Yeah, that's why I didn't really touch it. But you hit some points that some people probably were making a lot on Twitter, like who was picked to go first, the order, who was chosen to go up. So I can understand that. That's fine. So all right, well, we're going to talk about just the overall view of the game, and I guess kind of a little bit of a real quick and now what, just like where do we go from here? Because I've seen so many different things. Well, they need to bring these players up or change up this, and that. So, I don't know. We all mentioned just how we viewed the overall game or the overall tournament in general, actually, with the U.S. Was it a disappointment? Blah, 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 however you feel. And then we'll just wrap this up. So, we'll start with you first, Courtney. Just your overall view on the game and the tournament in general for us.
Well, the game obviously was disappointing, and I think, I'm not going to get into it. I think there's a lot of questions that, like you said, that we will touch on in a little bit, but I think there are some questions that we can ask. There was questions that we can ask and things that we can think of. Sorry, I was reading someone tweeted at us, but I'll get to that when we're done. Okay. But it's kind of more of like the what now, I guess. But overall, yeah, I just, there's questions that we're going to ask, especially with so many players, that are kind of had longer careers and things like that, and you don't know who's going to be around and things, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the one thing that I would say, and this is actually USWNT underscore NWSL on Twitter, said two thoughts on not playing Ali Krieger. Again, if we're talking penalties, that's someone who I probably, would have tried to squeak her in there because she has taken them in major tournaments before and other important games. But so to answer your question, that's someone that I probably would have put in there. Thanks for tweeting at us. But, overall, it's obviously a disappointment, but I don't think the team played terribly. So it's heartbreaking in the sense that, they had put in such a good tournament and there weren't really too many, we can criticize individual performances here and there, and you can do that in any game. But I think overall, they were having a good tournament. I think we all kind of just took for granted that they would advance and keep moving on.
That's true.
I know some people question whether they would win gold or not, but I don't think people thought they would be out this early. But I think overall, obviously, like I said, there were some decisions that maybe some people will question and wonder about. But it wasn't a horrible game. I think that's almost worse. If they were playing terribly and they lost, you can say, well, they played terribly. But I don't think they played terribly. So it's kind of thing that makes it even tougher. And looking at the results and how they were doing in the tournament. So.
All right. Yaya, your thoughts on the tournament and just kind of like now what with this team?
Yeah, obviously it's a huge disappointment to go out of the tournament this early. I think, to be honest with the U.S. team, it's a disappointment not to win the tournament, but this was a shock. But I think the thing to do, and what I always try to do as a player too, is look at how much the result of the game has influenced the way we reflect on it. And I think that if we had won that game, which we easily could have, finished a couple chances and won it, how different would our thoughts be on it? I think that's a dangerous place to be, is just because we lost in penalties, which like you said, it's kind of like anything can happen in penalties. the dangerous thing to do would be then to go back and like start to overanalyze and make all kinds of crazy changes, which I don't think, overall I think we have the best team in the world, and I think that consistently we've shown that, and like this wouldn't have happened but one time out of 100 or something. I don't even know what the stats would be on that. And another thing though, just to point out about the game in general, and this is something that I would say this is my only thing that over the years has like confused me a little bit about the U.S. national team, is that we have so many wonderful players, and just thinking about Ali Krieger and how we pushed Tobin to right back and people got moved around a little, and not so much with Jill Ellis's team, but I think that we have world-class players in every position, and the idea that somebody could play out of position better than someone else does at their position kind of bothers me, and that used to bother me when I was in the mix, and it bothers me now to watch, and I think that that's an insulting thing. Obviously you don't have unlimited substitutions, so I get that there's a lot going into that, and I'm not specifically just commenting on that one situation, but I think in general that happens with the national team. It's kind of assumed, okay, Carly Lloyd is has been one of the greatest players in the world. She's the greatest player in the world at every position. But no, Carly is the greatest player in the world when she's close to the goal and doing what she does well.
Right.
That doesn't mean that she will do better at every position on the field than every other player, and I don't even think Carly would think that. So I think that there's a little bit of a we're kind of like spoiled in the sense that all of our players maybe, and other national teams could play any position, but we actually have a world-class player who's specialized in each position, and that's why they were brought to the tournament. So that kind of starts to aggravate me when I see stuff like that in a tournament. And this is not just speaking to this game. It's been in general with the team, I think. And it's kind of like I can see why a coach would maybe do that, though. It's like you have so many wonderful players. You don't want to take anyone off the field, but at the same time, that would be the only thing that I think, I take away from that and would point out.
Well, that's a good point. I think at times I've always been aggravated at that because I'll see them and it's like, you think it's like the feeling where they think they're such a amazing player, as you said, that you could plug them anywhere and they're going to be amazing, but it's no, they're amazing within that position. Yeah, and it just irks me a bit because you can put, like you said, there's other players that specialize within that position that I feel should be playing within that position. So that's actually a really good point to make. Jen, your thoughts and now what with this team?
Yeah, kind of building off of what Yaya just said, I can't tell you how many shows we have done. Someone look back and tell me about how many times I've complained about Tobin playing somewhere other than that left flank.
It's been a lot. I don't even have to look. I've been on most of those shows. It's been a lot.
I know. It drives me up the wall because she's a left-footed player. She's brilliant there, and the same thing goes for the other players on the team. Yes, they're brilliant. They're absolutely phenomenal, and we can see these players play in places, in positions maybe on the national team that they don't in the NWSL, or in the NWSL that they, vice versa, So I think it's really tough when you have so many great players, as Yaya said, that you can just kind of put in somewhere and just kind of expect them to do really well because, against other teams in CONCACAF maybe they will. But then when you get onto these group stages, you have to look at who specializes in what position. And that's something that I do think we need to improve on. That being said, I think I'm gonna call out Brune and Tobin here because I think they were probably the two most consistent players of the tournament, and both of them did play in their specialty positions most of the time. So that for me is huge, and I think if we can not necessarily make a whole lot of crazy changes, but just develop the consistency with the players in their natural positions or in the positions that we need them to be able to play naturally. And, for example, if we need, if we're playing another 4-3-3 position and we don't have someone who's particularly brilliant on the right flank, if we have someone who can kind of adapt and develop there, I think we need to develop that consistency there. So it's not really so much about making changes, I think, as much as it is just improving upon what we already have, because our talent is unbelievable. We have so much depth on the field, on the bench, even in camp. It's incredible. This had to be the hardest decision for Jill Ellis to make, to select 18 players to put on this roster. Because even looking at the camp, we have so much talent to pull from in this country, and we're so blessed with that. But anytime something like this happens where we do lose in a knockout round, it's overwhelming for everyone. So as far as the now what, I think we just we go back to the NWSL. We we watch our players go back and take on a leadership role there, which they do so well. You know, they learn things in international tournaments that maybe some of the other younger NWSL players haven't had the chance to experience yet. So I think bringing those experiences back to the NWSL with them is going to be huge. You know, we're getting ready for that championship to fall again, and at this point it's up in the air as to who's going to take it. So I can't wait to see them get back to their NWSL teams and watch the progression from there, take what they learned from this tournament and move forward. And next camp, you know, I expect to see just as much talent. I expect to see, you know, phenomenal call-ups once again, and we've got some friendlies coming up that I'm really looking forward to. So I think just kind of taking what we've learned and moving forward is kind of the now what, and we'll see who wins the NWSL championship.
All right. Well, it better be sky blue. So we're going to Courtney now. And Courtney, your thoughts on that?
I have a feeling everyone sitting here will probably disagree with you on that statement, but no, just real quick, and I'm glad I kind of waited till the end because I just want to echo off a lot of what Jen said. You know, Jen says, you know, about taking things back and kind of, you know, obviously there's other national team questions and things to look at, and there's, you know, friendlies coming up, but I think that is, you know, something that's important for players to focus on is going back to their NWSL teams and kind of, you know, it's a growing experience for everyone, and I use, you know, even though she was an alternate in the tournament, I use Samu as that example. I feel like her time with the national team has helped her just overall soccer development, and it's something that I've noticed, you know, being there every week and you know, talking post game and stuff like that. Noticed that, you know, it seems to be something that's helping her a lot, and especially on a team like the Flash where they don't have really, like, they're such a young team, they're such kind of a new team. And so just that's always something that's beneficial, as is to anyone who's coming back to a team and can bring any kind of experience like that. But overall, you know, we talked about people changing things, and I don't really think, you know, the only thing I would consider two things, like, we don't know, again, if anyone, you know, would be retiring. No one said anything. I don't want to, like, open that can of worms, but it's always a possibility, especially after an Olympics, you know, kind of starting like a new cycle and things like that. So that's the one thing to be seen, and that obviously will kind of alter what changes are potentially made. But regardless of retirements or not, one thing I would like to see moving forward, especially in friendlies or anything like that, I feel like Jill Ellis has to start giving other goalkeepers time, and that's not anything against Hope Solo at all, because, like, you know, she's comes up big for us all the time. But I think we say this all the time when we see a friendly, and now that we're kind of, you know, moving on in the next couple of years and things like that, and, you know, we don't know how long Solo's going to be around, but I think that's something that I would just like to see, is to just, you know, in friendlies or anything, just kind of give, you know, people some more opportunity to get caps and have time in there. And that's probably the only thing, like, again, until we know kind of like what the, you know, people coming and going may look like, it's the one thing that I can definitively say that I would like to see moving forward, is to just, and it has nothing to do with, you know, the tournament or performance of, you know, the U.S. in the Olympics, but it's just something that as a U.S. national team, I would like to just see someone else, like some other, you know, goalkeepers that are going to be in the mix get some time and an actual game experience. So that's really the only thing that I would add.
Oh, that's fine. All right. Well, Courtney, you want to check for some questions? I'll do the wrap up real quick. I'll tell people about the contest, and then we'll thank Yael for coming on and all that good stuff. So.
I think we're good. I'll check, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we got a scarf contest, guys, so look out for that. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, cheap plug, and what is it? You know, like us on Facebook if people still use that thing anymore, and, you know, we'll just send you a scarf. We'll pick you randomly for a scarf. It's a USWNT National Team 3-star scarf, so it's pretty cool. So we'll send that out too. We'll probably pick a winner next week sometime. Any questions?
No, not any updated ones, but just, you know, thanks again to USWNT_NWSL at Twitter for asking us about our thoughts on, you know, not playing Allie Krieger in the goalkeeper situation in the next year or two. We appreciate you chatting with us and asking your question.
All right, cool. All right, so let me do the final wrap up. Thank you, Yael, for joining us. We appreciate it as always. What did you think of your experience?
What I think of my experience? No, it's a pleasure. I really appreciate you guys having these conversations, and like, in all seriousness, I know this is fun and we mess around a little, but these conversations are so important for the women's game, And the fact that people are tuning in and engaging, and that you guys are hosting this and doing it consistently, I think is so important. So it's an honor for me to come on here and talk with you guys, and I think everyone has awesome insight, and this is what we need. We need people paying attention and who care deeply enough to have the conversation. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate it.
Thank you again as well. So
yeah, thank you. Appreciate you coming on.
Always fun, always fun. Like I said, we love to discuss stuff, and we're glad you guys tune in to discuss it with us. So, guys, that's another episode of Off the Post. I'm your host, DJ Redcap. Tune in. I don't know, we'll probably think of something, since maybe we'll just talk about the rest of the tournament games or something like that, since we won't be talking U.S. Women's National Team for the rest of the Olympics. We'll figure out what we'll do with the next few episodes. I guess we got to show our guests how we leave. So who wants to show her what we do to leave each episode? Put that right hand up, you wave it at that camera.
I was like nervous. I was like, what am I about to see here?
No, we're not kicking you out. We're not waving bye to you. We're just waving bye to everyone.
Right. She was like,